All right, well, here we are, voice production. We've got the real Rick Doyle in the building. Thank you for jumping on the podcast. I know this has been in the works. And yeah, man, I wanted to bring you on because you're the real Rick Doyle on TikTok. You know, you're talking about the finances. You're giving education to people on how to be proactive when it comes to their resources. So I wanted to start with who is the real Rick Doyle? Like, if you had to condense it in like 30 to 60 seconds, as if we were back in the day, because context, you know, we go way back.
Yeah.
2013, 2014, where we started working together when we were in network marketing. We got at least for me, I got my feet wet with sales. It gave some sharpening as far as presenting. But as if we were doing a presentation, you know, there's a room for the 30 people. Like, who's the real Rick Doyle from then versus now, if you had to encompass it?
Yeah, definitely. Well, really, I would just start with, you know, my life story, which is like, I grew up in like a lower middle class type family. My dad wasn't around ever. It was just my mom working 3 jobs. So I remember like during Christmas time and holidays, things were tough. Like, we always heard like that whole like money doesn't grow on trees. Like, you know, you laugh at it now, right? Mm-hmm. But like that was a real thing. Mm-hmm. And so I remember there was like this turning point that I had when I was fresh out of college, because as you know, I was a mechanic for like 5 years in Illinois, and it just, my passion wasn't behind it. And I started to look at my life and where it was going, and I had all these lofty goals of like, you know, I wanted to buy a house, I wanted to go on vacation, but I looked at how I was going to get there, and I didn't have any sort of like roadmap or anything like that. And I knew at that time, like, the only way I'm going to get where I want to go is by taking action and like doing something about it, you know? And so I think that's what really all started, is just kind of reaching this turning point in my life of understanding I'm going to have to do something to change this path, right? And so that's when I just kind of started picking up every book I could on finance. And the more that I learned, the more I realized that like the information I have, not a lot of people have. And I'm blessed to say it, right? And it's really turned into something that I couldn't imagine it being, because like I was looking for my purpose for a really long time, and it wasn't until I got into the finance world that I was like, this is what I love to do. I love to educate people on finance. I like to help them get where they want to go, because unfortunately we're in a society where it's not there, right? And so if I can be that resource for other people to help them get where they want to go, no matter where it is, that's what I want to do. So I guess I know you wanted 30 seconds, but what is that, like 2 minutes? But
no, that's
the elevator pitch. That's the elevator pitch.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
And so right now you're in the current state. Like, when did you start doing TikToks? Because like I said, you gained traction. I remember when you first started to now, the compound effect has risen as far as where people are coming to you, and they're starting to listen, and they're looking for advice. They're looking for somebody that has a voice of production. In this case, in the financial world. When did you start, and then like what's changed from then, just from a mentality standpoint? Because I'm sure it's been interesting to have that many eyeballs to just go ahead and come about you, and then just have that power. And so, when did you start?
Yeah, so it's actually funny, because what I used to do in the beginning was I would record them, and then I would put them on like my socials, like my Facebooks and all that. And so you'll get like your Facebook reminding you, what did you post, you know, 3 or 4 years ago. So I think it started somewhere like 3 years ago. And truth be told, I actually didn't even want to do TikTok. My brother was like hard into it. Like he would, you know, he's the person that's scrolling through it, you know, for hours at a time, and he's sending me TikToks, and I didn't even have the app downloaded like at all. I'm like, I'm not going to get into this, like, you know, no shot at it. And then of course, you know, eventually
gave it a peek.
Exactly. I gave it a peek. And then I actually just like, when I started my page, it wasn't really finance related at all. It was just, let me see what this thing can do, because they have some pretty cool features on there, like the effects, like voice changers, things like that. And when I started, it was more like motivational stuff that I was doing, because I'm obviously really big into like personal development and stuff like that, and I wanted to help like empower people. But I think for me, it was just kind of, when I first started making videos, I'd make them once in a while. It wasn't all the time. It's just when I kind of felt like it, right? And then I just got consistent one day, and I don't know when that was. I'd probably say like 2 years ago. So like a year into it, I got consistent, where I just started making a TikTok every single day type deal. And then I remember the turning point for me, which I was just having this discussion with somebody recently, was I made this TikTok. I think I was at something like 2,500 like followers or whatever. I made this TikTok and I got 2 million views overnight. And when that happens, there's a mental shift that you go through. Because it's like, you understand what I'm talking about. It's this mental shift where you're like, now I have to do this every day, right? And so that's when I really got on my grind once I hit that, like, as long as you stay consistent, what I'll say is you'll eventually get to that spot where one of your videos goes viral. And the second it does, that's when you have that mental shift where you're like, okay, now it's time for me to like really buckle down and really start, taking this thing really serious. So ever since then, I mean, I'll do at least 1 or 2 videos a day easily. And it was like, I think before it was interesting because I would have to prepare my videos like the night before. Now it's like I'm so used to making content that I can make a video in 5 minutes and put it out there. Like get the news, record it, edit it, everything. And so it's like second nature kind of. So yeah, it's been a wild ride, but it's been fun.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so as far as the financial aspect of it, you really like it. So
yeah.
Why does Rick Doyle have a passion for finance? Like I know you mentioned earlier, as far as like money was growing trees, like, and then you're currently in the financial industry right now, correct?
Yeah.
So where does the passion come from? Is it like, let's kind of peel that back just a little bit in terms of detail of because that's the beautiful thing, is you like it, and as opposed to just doing it just to do it, like you're in the comments, you're interactive, you're helping people. And you can tell it's genuine when you're given that information, as opposed to there's an agenda behind it. And I think that's super important, especially nowadays. Again, like I said earlier, there's a lot of lack of voices of production where people aren't really, on the offensive on doing the things that they say, or at least studying on a day-to-day basis. Where does that passion come from? Yeah,
well, really, obviously, if we look out in the world right now, there's a lot of issues. I mean, you turn on the news, you see it everywhere, right? I mean, you'll see a lot of like hate stuff. You'll see a lot of, left versus right, like the political stuff. A lot of divorces are caused from, finances, things like that. So a lot of problems actually are centered around finance. And it sucks to say that. I don't like to say that. But when you look at the reality of the situation, that is the reality of the situation. And so for me, the way I kind of look at it is, the playing field really isn't level right now. What I mean by that is we have a lot of people who earn a lot of money that tend to make the rules. And unfortunately, it leaves people in a position where we have this mindset of like, since these people have all this money, we don't stand a chance, when that's not true at all. If you put money in the hands of good people, now it's an even playing field. So for me, what I look at is you're not going to be able to change the system unless you can level the playing field and it's even. So like for me, I just kind of look at it like, if you want to, and I'll just use the political thing, it doesn't really matter what side you're on. Both of them are funded, right? They're heavily funded. News media outlets are heavily funded. And a lot of times they're pushing something, no matter what it is, right? Well, in order for us to like change that narrative, we have to be the ones to fund it. We have to be the ones to get behind it and say, hey, this is what we want to see, right? Like, we're the ones that are in control of this now. It's no longer the people at the way top. It's the playing field is level. So I think for me, it's deeper than just one person's individual like having wealth. It's an everybody type deal, because if we can all work together on understanding finance, and we can work together and this is what I tell my community on TikTok is, I'm just a talking head on a phone.
Yeah, you're a vessel.
But if we all work together, like, you might know something that I don't know, and I might know something that you don't know. So if we can help each other, not only are we helping, our families grow, but we're helping our communities, we're helping our states, we're helping our countries. We're doing things like that. So it's kind of a bigger picture thinking of finance. It's not just an individual, because I think if you focus on your individual finance, I think that's where it gets tainted. That's where people really start to be more like, their morals can be compromised, because it's more of an individual interest. Like for me, there's no individual interest at all. I'm willing to give any information and help anybody get where they want to go, because it's bigger than me.
Right, it's not a secret.
Exactly. So I think that's really where the passion comes from. And I mean, you can hear it now, right? It's like, I see this world where money isn't an issue for people anymore. They understand how it works because money at the end of the day is a game.
It's a resource.
It's a game. Yeah. And if you understand the game and you know how to play the game, anything's possible. Now we have money in the hands of good people who are able to do charity work with it. They're able to help their communities. They're able to help their families. They're able to help their health. They're able to save their marriages. Like, it's bigger than just money. You see what I'm saying? So, like, that's really where it comes from.
No, I agree. I'm glad you said that because, like, I resonate with that wholeheartedly because people have a negative connotation with money, or people that have it as far as who they are with their who they are as a person, their character. When if you can like redevelop a new relationship with money, you can really change whether it flows to you or, you know, it steers away from you.
Yeah.
So everything that right there is a big unlock that a lot of people, if they can just wrap their mind around and readjust their paradigm, they can really have the life that they want. And having a life you want isn't just materialism. Like when I say to have the life you want, a lot of people think about the things that they can get externally when it should start, or it should be added on with, you know, like you said, your health, your wealth, your love, your happiness, and those things aren't external. A lot of those things are internal, and your health can help, your finances can help facilitate a better life for that. But you have to see that first, and then maybe let's say the material, as opposed to the material, then those things second, third, fourth, or fifth. But I'm glad you touched on that. So you've been doing some coaching recently, and that's just before we get into that, like you had that video go viral. What are some of the feedback you're hearing from people? Like you have a lot of in-depth conversations and you're getting in terms of the comments and everything. What do people have said? Because I know you've got some videos shadow banned. There's a lot of controversy in the comments where you're keeping it open. But what are you hearing from people? What are some common themes that you're hearing people when they take the time to comment on your videos? Is it controversial? Is it a mix of, you know, they agree, they disagree, or they're challenging what you say? Like, what's that look like?
I think in the beginning, you get kind of a mixed bag of both. I mean, you really have to get thick skin in anything you do in social media, because I think when when that video went viral, I had a lot of hate on it. A lot of people didn't like it, you know, but I look at it now as like, it's a blessing, right? Because the way I look at it is not everybody's going to have the same point of view as you do. And so why not number one, why be, you know, offended by somebody else's opinion, right? Like, it's just an opinion. Allow them to have that opinion and be okay with it. And that's something I've learned through, you know, having this thick skin. Is before I used to read these comments and I get pissed. Like, I get really mad at the stuff, because my point of the video is never to hurt anybody. It's to raise awareness as to what's going on, because without awareness, you can't change the habits that you have, right? And you have to change those habits to get a different, you know, result. So I think when I first started making content, it was kind of like 50-50 of like, yes, people liked it, but then there's other people that were like, you shouldn't be doing this. Like, you know, like, you don't know what you're talking about, like that type of deal, you know? But you just push through it and you keep going, right? Because who you really do it for is you do it for the people who are going to listen. You don't do it for the people, because you're always going to have haters. I mean, I look at haters as a blessing now. I love them. I absolutely love them, because at least they're taking the time to watch the video. Like what they're listening to, they might not get now, but give it, you know, 6 months, a year, whatever, down the road, it might hit them and they go, oh, that's what he was talking about. So, you know, it's like, thank you for taking the time. This is what I actually say to like haters now, is like, before I used to engage with them and like do the whole like rant thing back and forth to come. I don't even do that. Like now it's like one of those things where it's like, hey, thanks for, you know, taking time to boost my content right now. I appreciate your feedback, like that type of deal, because it is helping, right? And, you know, I want to build a community. And this is really what it's morphed into, is building a community where everybody's opinion is kind of accepted. No matter if you agree with what I'm saying or don't agree with what I'm saying, that's not the point. The point is that you have something I can learn from you, and I have something that, you know, you can learn from me. So like, that's really what it's turned into. But I think now, you know, obviously you still have those haters. There's stuff that I'm posting now, the shadow banning thing, for instance, I thought was pretty interesting, because how that came to be was what I started to understand about TikTok is, if you leave it open for engagement and you allow people to have an open dialogue in the comments, it's kind of like a runaway train, where you don't even have to like engage with the people that are, you know, putting comments, and they're engaging amongst themselves, which as the algorithm works, the more engagement, the more views you're going to get, right? Yep. So I kind of left, and what I still do is I really don't come at anything with an opinion. I'll just post, here's this article here, tell me what you think about this. And I think that the videos that I got shadow banned, I think they might have misinterpreted it and thought I was putting something out there to push some sort of agenda when I wasn't. It was just kind of like, but again, that's the haters thing, right? So yeah, I went through my shadow banning period. Luckily that's over right now. But what I've noticed now is since I built this community, there's a lot more people that are open and accepting to everybody that comes in. So yeah, you still get your haters, but there's not nearly as many as when I first started. So it's more like a community-based one now. So it's been a really awesome type transition. So
that's just great to hear, especially nowadays, because everything's pushed typically from some paradigm or some political view, and so that we need more communities like that where people are offering. Let me hear what you think. Like Patrick David does a lot of that, where he gives insight and he wants to have banter from both sides and overall just more so have an open dialogue, because it seems like nowadays one side wants to hear one perspective and they don't want to necessarily hear the other, and that's just a toxic way of going about life, where in reality you can learn when you listen to the opposition, whether you like them or not. You can learn what to do and what not to do. If you're a Republican or you're a Democrat, you can learn from the other side. You can learn from these political parties that are funded. If you really see the big game of everything, where everybody's in place as if they're a chess piece. If you can see the full board, you can really win in this thing we call life, where you can get where you want to go versus feeling emotionally hurt because that person's a Democrat and I'm a Republican, or he's conservative versus progressive. Like there's a lot of value in all sides. The real kryptonite is when you can't even hear the other side. I tell my sister that all the time. Like I typically tell a lot of people that, where it's if you can't stand and hear the other side, then you lost. Because like they could tell you, they could be telling, just generally speaking, they could be telling you, don't go out on the street because there's somebody down there, or this happened here, or it's just general information. But a lot of people suffer from that, which always has me ponder. It's like if you can create that environments like there's communities like yours. Do you have a name for your community, or is it?
I don't. No? I think that's the next step for me, because I've been doing a lot more TikTok lives. The TikTok lives are awesome. Like when I first started doing TikTok lives, I didn't like it. It's like, because you're on the spot, people can ask you anything, and you get the haters in the comments. You get them, so you got to keep your cool and all that other stuff. But I love the TikTok lives now. So the community thing was something that kind of came up like a couple of months ago. So I haven't thought of a name. I need to though.
Yeah, you gotta get a name. You gotta get
definitely.
You gotta get a name that people can rock
but
behind.
It's funny that you bring up the open-mindedness, because that's one thing about finance that is extremely important. Because right now, what a lot of people have been taught is, when it comes to like retirement, as an example, a lot of people are given a 401k, like a company-owned 401k, and they think that's the only way to retirement because that's all they know. But if you remain open-minded, there's, especially right now, I mean, we're in a market where it's risky to be in the stock market. And I'm telling a lot of my people right now, if you absolutely are like, I'm buying in the stock market, I'm not going to tell you to not buy in the stock market. But right now is one of those situations where if you're in the stock market, you're probably losing money. And unfortunately, a lot of people, they have all of their assets tied up in something like a 401k, right? And so I started to realize that I need to be open-minded if I'm going to, accrue the level of wealth that I see for myself. And that means diversification. That means, exploring more into real estate investing. That means exploring more into, the crypto space. That means exploring more into like dividend investing and mutual funds and, fixed index annuities, things like that. Really understanding intimately, the difference between each one and how each one of them has their own strength in each particular situation. So what it allows you to do is you don't participate in times like right now. And I think that's one of the key things to being open-minded in finance is if you can understand that you don't know what you don't know and you're willing to listen to somebody else.
Like Kevin Trudeau.
Like Trudeau, like Trudeau. That's and it's funny that you bring up Trudeau, and I'm kind of going off on a little tangent here, but Trudeau's another big reason why I do finance, because what he taught me is that you want to listen to people who have what you want and have been where you are, right? And so for me, obviously, like if I want to become wealthy, I have to listen to people who are wealthy, and that's where the open-mindedness comes in. And that's why I'm blessed to be in the banking sector now, because I'm working with clients that are millionaires, that have multi-million-dollar businesses, and I'm able to pick their brains. But it's that open-mindedness after picking their brains and having that open dialogue that I can start looking at, maybe changing something that I'm doing where, yes, the market might be going down right now, but how can I diversify so that I'm not participating in those market losses? And that's when you start to win the game of money, because that's what people don't really understand, is that money is a game. You just have to know the rules of the game.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's where that conversation comes in, where a lot of people there's a great population of people in America that hear, they get told the narrative of somebody that's wealthy, and they immediately write them off. Like a lot of people growing up, somebody in the family, someone's had somebody, if you grew up in 90s, maybe even before, it was some type of negative connotation built around those wealthy people. And then when you hear those wealthy people, it's typically a negative sense, like, oh, they're evil or they're this. And then on the other spectrum, you're in the banking sector, and then you're hearing people and you're getting you're enabling yourself to be open-minded to hearing what they have to say, and therefore you have a different paradigm. Because I'm sure you've heard that before, right? As far as family, friends are like, oh, wealthy people, oh, bad.
Exactly. Yeah, money doesn't grow on trees. Money's the root of all evil. All that stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. And so that's the conversation. Is like, if somebody's listening to this, that's where you have to, like you said, Kevin Trudeau. I'm sure people heard Kevin Trudeau. They're like, oh, I'm turning this off. That's where the knowledge you might need might be. Just because it's from someone that you don't like doesn't mean it can't serve you. And that right there for me is just like, that's a big principle of mine. But going back to it, before I say is voice production, look at podcasting, whether it be this podcast or any podcast. Don't look for it as the answer. Just look at it as a perspective to help you collectively, figure out your next move. So I like to say that, because so many people take things absolute, where just because you and I, Rick or Sean or Martin, whoever might be doing it, if somebody says to do something, it's not necessarily for you to go ahead and necessarily do. You need to assess the information to figure out your next move. And so going into what I wanted to ask you is, what are the real Rick Doyle financial principles? Like, is there anything that you live by that is his perspective and how he's going about it, and you can assess if you want to do it?
Yeah, well, one of the biggest things I always start with is money, body, mind, and spirit. Okay. Like everything, money, it revolves around those three principles, right? And I mean, you've touched on it a couple times in this podcast, but a lot of people, they have a negative connotation in their thinking around money. You have to have a healthy relationship with money. If you don't have a healthy relationship, you're repelling it, basically. So at a basic fundamental level, what I try to get people to understand is that money is really just an exchange of value. That's really all it is. And when you look at something like gold, for instance, gold has held its value for a really long time and will continue to hold its gold for a really long time. Why is that? It's because of the value it holds, right? And not a lot of people know this, but I mean, everything in this universe vibrates, right? We know that, right? So gold is one of the highest vibrating materials on the planet right now. So knowing that, you also want to understand that like money is being attracted to you. So you have to have a healthy, type of relationship with it, because the value that you're exchanging is actually energy. And a lot of people have this misconception of like, you need to work hard to get money. That's not true. You need to have a healthy relationship, and you need to have a healthy vibration, and you have to allow yourself to, from a physical standpoint, feeling great, right? Because if you're eating the right foods, now you have more energy. If you have more energy, you're able to accomplish more. We're doing podcasts right now, right? After we're done with podcasts, we're probably going to go do other money-making activities. A lot of people, if you look at their day in, day out routine, 9 to 5, after they get off work at 5, they don't have the energy to do anything else. Mm-hmm. Well, if we know that money is energy, you're not spending any energy after work at all. So how do you expect to get more money? It doesn't make any sense, right? Mm-hmm. So it's really this mind, body, spirit type principle where everything has to be in alignment, where you're at your top physical, peak in all aspects, right? Because you're constantly trying to attract this money essentially. And if you have this negative mindset, or if you are somebody who, you have negative relationships or whatever the case is, you're repelling that stuff away. And so I try to not, I touch on that a little bit, but I would say like that's one of the first things that I started with before I started accruing wealth, was really focusing on my mindset surrounding money. Because what I understood is that if I don't truly in my heart of hearts believe that I can have wealth, I'll never have it, period. So that's where it started, is like I have to have this healthy relationship. So I think like that's one of the biggest like principles that I go into a little bit with my clients, is before we like really focus on, accruing some serious wealth for you, we need to figure out where you're at mentally, emotionally, where you like, do you even believe that you can get where you want to go? Because if you don't believe, the biggest thing with finance is discipline. This is what I say to everybody. It's like with my TikTok is a great example of that. The reason why my TikTok is successful is because I'm disciplined to make a video every single day. Finances are exactly the exact same thing. It's like if you want to get where you want to go, whether it be paying off debt, buying a house, repairing your credit, you have to stay disciplined to do it. And if you don't have that, there's no point. Like you don't even have the willpower to go after what you want. So it's a little bit deeper than just, this idea of I want to become wealthy. You have to start with yourself and having the awareness of what's going on up here and what's going on in here. Once you have that, then you're on your path toward that wealth. So
Wealthy Thinking 101.
Exactly. Wealthy Thinking 101, 100%.
Sensational.
Yeah.
So tell me what comes to mind with these two. Tell me what comes to mind and what you've seen with these two words. So financing and then AI. Like how have you? What is your perspective and what have you seen with those two worlds colliding? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
So actually, this was pretty interesting, and I'm getting ready to make a video about this. But there are a lot of financial institutions that are changing and allowing clients to move away from human financial advisors and actually go more AI based, because what they're realizing is that AI is winning more of their trades than humans are. So they're giving the ability for people to actually go more toward an AI type financial advisor. Now for a lot of people, and especially for the customers that I deal with and clients I deal with, it scares them. Obviously when something's new, that's why we're hearing a lot of controversy around AI right now. People don't know it. And when people don't know anything, they're afraid of it. They reject it. It's like cryptocurrency was, 10 years ago and what it still is today. People are afraid of it because they don't understand it. But once you understand it, you can see how it can actually be used for good. So like for me, one of the things that I've been telling a lot of my customers is like really pay attention to like the AI space moving forward, because the first thing that you'll always notice, and this is big when it comes to investing, is don't look at something for where it is, look at it for where it's going. You want to have a vision of 5 to 10 years from now, where something is going to be. So if there's controversy surrounding something, more than likely, it's a good thing. More than likely. And it's a prime example of what we're seeing with AI right now. AI is being rejected all over the place. Why? Because if you look at it, it's taking jobs away from humans right now. So people are afraid because they don't know what's next. So naturally they're going to reject it. But what they're going to start to realize is that AI makes your life really, really easy. And once people realize that, they're going to start accepting it more and more. And that's when it takes off like gangbusters. Now our whole world is this AI-filled type world. You know what I mean? And so I look at the AI space in kind of an open-minded type standpoint, because like when I first saw AI, I was like, this is insane. Like we're really actually going to allow this to happen. Like what are we going to do to control this? But then I started to think about it from a standpoint of like, we've always figured out ways to evolve as humans, and this is no different. Just because there's a machine involved, we're not going to be able to evolve and, figure out our job situations and figure out how to make life, kind of work in unison with AI. Like we're going to figure that out. And so when you start to think like that, you're not afraid of it anymore. And then you start to see the opportunity in it, which is why, like for me, I love it. I think it's going to be great moving forward, not only from an investment standpoint on the financial advisor side of things, but also like the simplicity of what it's the impact it's going to have from a simplicity standpoint in people's lives. So
Do you use ChatGPT or any AI or
no,
do you mess with anything?
No, honestly, I heard about GPT. I'm not a huge tech person, to be honest with you. Like even my TikToks, I do very little editing on them because like for me, I focus on the message. When it comes to technology like that, I'm going to give it to somebody who knows what they're doing. Like that's not my strong suit. I'll delegate it to somebody who knows what they're doing. So I know about Chat GTP. I've talked to some people in the finance world who I'm really close friends with, and we've really kind of thrown some ideas out there. And just based on the short period of time since Chat GTP came out and what we've seen with it, it's something that is going to, I think in the short term, we're going to see like bumps in the road with it because people don't understand it. Right. But I think that, in the long run, it's going to be something that's, commonplace. So yeah.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Or her spitting the fire hose.
I'm like, yeah, no, it's crazy because like people are asking me and, it's really interesting because when you start to incorporate, like AI with what I do here, a lot of people, I think it's gonna scare a lot of people.
Of course.
It's gonna definitely scare a lot of people. But I think that once people fully understand it from an investment standpoint, it's gonna help them get where they want to go from a retirement. I mean, think about it. You have a computer that knows the algorithms of the stock market, knows the cycles. That cuts the learning curve of learning charts in the stock market in half. Like learning charts takes years for most people to even learn the charts. Now AI will do it for you and invest for you. Like that's insane to think about. You know what I mean? So I think in the long run, it's going to be excellent for people.
No, I like to say this is our Facebook. Like as far as when Facebook first came out, all the social medias first came out. We're now living through that cycle with Bitcoin and AI, and it's taken this like second major like maturation period where 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was fresh and new on the market, but now we're finally getting our first solid 20 years of maturation, and then the full second versions like come in full circle. Yeah. And so, like you said, you can either be on the forefront of it, because I use it every day as far as ChatGPT. In terms of just talking to it, it's like having a conversation. As far as you just got to know how to have the conversation to get the answers that you want to create whatever you're trying to use, as opposed to, I don't know, doing extensive amounts of research on the internet where you can cut that down from 42 tabs into 4 questions, and you can get those 4 questions in 4 minutes, as opposed to, 42 tabs, slow down computer, 4 hours later. But it's really crazy to see. Like I just saw right before this, I think I told Martin this, Google is partnering with Jasper. Jasper is like a major AI tool. It's like ChatGPT, but it was a paid version already prior to that. But they're partnering because they're trying to compete, because like a lot of the search engines, why would I need ChatGPT? Why would I need Google or Yahoo or Bing when I could just go to ChatGPT? Because all you have to do is just a screen, and then they have some examples of how you can prompt things you can ask it, and then you can ask it anything. Like I use it a lot for a lot of my home service agencies, as far as my home service clients, where I'm trying to figure out the demographic of where I'm running ads. I'm trying to figure out the counties, what racial demographics, the counties, what's the median income. Yeah. I'm just like, I'm like, ChatGPT, give me the median income ratio so I can make ads specific to those individuals. But it's a beautiful time. Like it's exciting and it's exhilarating, because like all 2023, it's just all steam ahead, because you're either going to be ahead of it or you're going to be behind it, because a lot of things are changing right now.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is like, you're not going to be able to change it. Like it's here no matter what, right? And we were talking about this before the podcast started. I mean, Martin's editing videos, and you just saw him edit a video with AI in, what was it, like a minute or something like that? 30 seconds. Yeah, like 30 seconds.
That's crazy.
And
so how long did that take before?
To put it together, probably like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like synchronizing everything.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, that's the simplicity that we're talking about. So yeah, there's controversy surrounding it, but I think once people get familiar with it, they're going to love it. You know what I mean? And that goes for me too. Like I don't obviously use it, but I can see how it's going to make my life easier already. And I don't even use it.
I definitely encourage it. Even if it's 10 minutes a day.
Yeah.
Just asking it maybe 5, 10 questions. You'll just like TikTok, just with your whole life, not even just. It can be used for anything and everything in terms of their day to day, whether it be your health, your happiness, everything. Where it can help you condense time. It can just condense workloads down immensely, especially for me. But it's something to play with, like Gary Vee. Just like one thing that I've always like when we were doing network marketing. I remember that was the first time I had met Gary when we went to Vegas.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He was like, "How do people know who I am?" Just 18, just getting out of high school for me, and then since then he's just been right about so many different things. Where he's doing it again. Whether before it was Snapchat, Venmo, Instagram. He called when Instagram was going to get bought. He called the value of Snapchat, Facebook when that was going to emerge, Uber, and now it's this. He's like, I'm waiting for you guys to take AI seriously.
Yep.
And it's for me when I see that, I'm like, okay, like I've already been on it, but like that's always been the voice of consuming his videos over the years, where as long as you just play with it, you don't have to necessarily make it a mastery overnight, but like you're doing like the discipline of people make that effort of asking it questions every single day. It can really work in your favor as opposed to distancing yourself, because like now we're in a very pivotal point right now where either you're 25, 35 or 45 and you have either a 50, 60, 70-year-old mentality where you basically, I'm not going to use that, because I work with a lot of traditional business and they're older. They're owned by, what's the generation for millennials?
I thought it was I
don't know,
sure.
Gen X, just the generation.
I thought it was just millennials.
Yeah, I don't know.
We're just gonna say millennials.
Yeah, millennials. Anybody who was born in the 70s, 80s, 90s, that own businesses. Like the idea, I deal with so much resistance. So many people are resistant, like example, just advertising. Like, oh, you need to hire, like my big thing is you need to hire a media department. Like everybody needs a media management department where you control the narrative in your industry. And there's people that are up for it, and there's a lot of people you go into the conversation that either had a bad relationship with an agency or they don't even want to learn it, and that's going to put out right now 32 million small businesses right now in America. It's going to put a lot of them out of business. The question is, are you going to be the person to get put out of business? Why would they be going out of business? Because they haven't adapted. They haven't made progression an obsession with their business, because they're only doing things traditionally, and they haven't added that modern piece to it. And so this is that fine line right now when it comes to AI, where if you don't just put a little bit of effort into learning how to use it, it could really make or break whether you're obsolete or, you can go ahead and grab the market, let's say, from the internet that's online to your offline business.
Yeah.
But what do you...
Well, and to piggyback on that a little bit, because the thought I kept having in that is, you're right. A lot of people, they don't want to adapt to things. And like ChatGPT, I actually look at that very similar to what's going on in the finance world right now. So not a lot of people know that we actually have a digital dollar that is working for us right now. GPT? See,
I can already...
that shows you how much
it's okay. I already hear I can already hear the comments like, he didn't say it right.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah. It's like I said, man, it's all good. But ChatGPT. So it's just interesting because like, you look at the finance world right now, and you have to adapt to what's going on. One of the things that I get from clients pretty consistently that are in the know, a lot of them are not in the know, is that we're moving toward a digital dollar, and people don't even know this. And so what that means is that the way we do banking is rapidly changing before us. And a lot of that has to do with the technology. A lot of it has to do with AI. A lot of it has to do with the simplicity of transactions, right? And so like that's one thing that you want to look at as well, is those people that are not adapting to these changes are the ones that are going to get left behind. And unfortunately, it's not just going to hit them from, the AI standpoint and everything that happens in their life. It's going to hit them financially too. And that's just the reality of the situation. Do I like it? I don't like it. I like the fact that we have diversity in our financial system, but I also understand that in order for us to, kind of make things simple, we have to change things. And so our old banking system just doesn't work anymore. It doesn't. I mean, I don't know how much you know about the banking system, but the modern banking system was created in 1976. It was surrounded by the US dollar, checks, faxes, things like that, like things that we don't do anymore. You know what I mean? Now we have the Zells, we have the PayPals, we have all this stuff where, what people don't know is that a transaction between me and you settles like through Zelle in like 3 seconds. but it doesn't settle with a bank right away. It actually settles with a bank like 24 to 48 hours later. So those banks actually owe IOUs to each other. What this technology is going to do and things like AI is going to do is it's going to help these banks to process these transactions faster. But in order to do that, they're going to have to make a lot of change. They're going to have to update the modern banking system. And if you're not keeping up with that, just like you say, right, like those people that don't adapt are going to get left behind. And so I like hand in hand. So it was interesting that you kind of brought that up.
No, what comes to mind when you saw all that, just in general, the principle of not adapting, the things, nothing's perfect, but the things that are good for you or that can be good for you aren't necessarily something that feels good or, at face value, or it's like taking medicine. Medicine isn't always, oh, this tastes really good. Like a lot of things in life don't necessarily feel good or sound good.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to sort through that, where I like to say progression should be the only obsession when it comes to just your life in general, because things are always going to be changing. Like, why would I prepare for things not to change when everything is changing? And I'm always being shocked, whether it be, losing loved ones to your health, these things are inevitable. And so to have a mindset, an offensive mindset where you have preparation to deal with things mentally, physically, spiritually, financially, you can put yourself in a better position to thrive as opposed to just, surviving.
Right. And that's really like what we're going to start seeing is I think that moving forward, if you're not adapting, the gap is going to get even bigger. Because there's obviously, if you look at finance, that's one of the biggest things that we hear right now. The people, the divide between those at the way top and then the people in the middle is pretty big. That's only going to get bigger, especially when you start to think about, these jobs that AI is now able to do. If you're not gaining new skills, if you're not doing something to stand out, you're going to get left behind. And that's just a fact of the matter, Yeah,
it's interesting to think about. Think about what life was like 30 years ago, 40 years ago. A skill set would long live for 30, 40, 50 years, like one skill set. But now it seems like you have to be almost a Swiss Army knife to make things happen. Like even for me to work with Martin, just like we're all relatively being in the media space and with the voice production, like everybody that I know as a base, especially on the media side, has general knowledge about multiple things. They all are relatively the same, but it's not based around one skill. Like people that are good on the camera, but they also know how to really work the lighting to, as far as with audio to like, you have to be a Swiss Army knife to a certain degree in order to get by, especially with the dollar, like the inflation, like $12 eggs, like what's going on, bro? Like,
I still don't understand that. Like, do we have a shortage of chickens? Is that yeah.
It just doesn't make sense where like, it's just more and more apparent where you have to have multiple sources of income of some degree, whether it be a side hustle. Do you have to be an entrepreneur? No, you don't have to be a full-blown entrepreneur, despite that's the market where people are being marketed to, where if you can learn how to make an extra resource as opposed to just relying on one stream, then you're at least somewhat ahead than you were before, as opposed to you getting inflation is going up 6%, but you might get a 0.4% raise on average every year. The math ain't mathing.
Well, and that's exactly it, right? And that's why I get so passionate about finances. It's little things like that. Like, you get it, right? It's like, but even on a more basic level, people don't even understand what you just said. You know what I mean? Like, they just, and I hate saying this. I don't want to like downplay anybody, but the conditioning of some people's mind doesn't work the same way because they've been programmed to think a certain way. And so when they start to look at their finances, they don't even realize what they're doing. They don't even realize that like, this 2% raise you got, you're celebrating it, but you're not looking at the fact that we're at 9% inflation rate. Like, what does 2% in your pay do if everything in your life is more expensive anyways?
Especially when it's tax.
100%.
That 2% tax.
Well, that's the other thing too, and I think that's one of the most interesting things that happens on my TikTok is we talk a lot about like, I'm a huge advocate of listening to people who have what you want in order to get where you want to go. And so, I look at these, there's a lot of this movement of like tax the rich, right? Well, my mom is a tax professional, so I understand tax code. And tax code is next to impossible to change. It's been in place for decades. And so this idea of, tax the rich, I don't think people really understand what it would take. It would take years and years and years for them to create it the way that people want it to be created. But even still, changing it wouldn't do anything, because at the same time, the rich would still find ways to not necessarily avoid taxes, but how to write things off. And this is one thing that I stress big time on my TikTok is like, you're not going to be able to change the tax code, period. So why not learn the tax code, right? Why not play the exact same game that the wealthy are playing so that you don't pay as much taxes either? It doesn't matter if you're a millionaire or if you make $50,000. If you learn how the tax code works, you're not going to pay much taxes, period. But people don't know this stuff. And rather, it's easy for them to just say, this person's a problem, we need to be taxing them. No. Educate yourself and understand that, like, you can write this off, this off, this off, this off, this off. You can do all of these different things so that you're now playing the game just like the rich are playing it. But it takes that awareness and discipline of learning this stuff, right? And so that's another huge part of it too.
100%. I'll circle it off with this, like, because I like to say, that's why I love analogies and I love rhyming things, as many people have come to know.
Lyricologist,
right? Like legit, Mr. Sensational in the building. You have to treat your education and your mindset like the oil change to your car. Like the things that you need when you need to get your transmission changed, like when they tell you that you need your transmission fluid changed every 45,000 miles, or your tires need to be rotated every 10,000 or completely changed to, the filter. You got to treat that. You got to treat your mental like that. You got to treat your health like that. Yep. And it can't be till it's the last second. You can't go to the doctor. You shouldn't be going to the doctor when they're telling you that you're on the verge of X, and then you get into that rhythm where I have to do this, this, and this. It should already be a lifestyle, and it's unfortunate. A lot of people they've made convenience such a crutch where it's unfortunate that's the thing that people need, and you just have to hope it's not too late by then. But if it's already a mentality, like I was just having a conversation with my business partner, my roommate, Patrick, because Andy Rosella was talking about this as far as like the negatives of it, and it was just interesting, some of the alerts where there's just, and it just brought up a conversation of he was talking about AI on the 20 minutes of his pod. Is I was saying, you can't, like, just because things are made convenient doesn't mean you should do them. Like, right now we're headed down the road of Wall-E. Like, there's a lot of things that are made convenient that they shouldn't be made convenient. Like, there's a lot of things that need hard work and dedication. Yeah. Through your day to day and your health, wealth, love, happiness, all pillars that you shouldn't be automating to help you progressively, move on the offense in the areas you want in your life, as opposed to being on the defense. And I like to say, I heard somebody say it was the best. It's like, I don't like to, they say, everyone likes to say, stay safe out there. Mm-hmm. And then the rebuttal was like, I'm not looking to stay safe. I'm looking to stay dangerous, because safes get broken into eventually. Yeah. So,
well, think about safe and think about comfort zones, right? I mean, yes. As an entrepreneur, you already know, like, you gotta get uncomfortable and be okay being uncomfortable. I mean, it's with anything. I mean, we talked about the TikTok that I built. I hated being on camera when I first did it, but I knew what my mission was, and I think that what you're saying plays directly into the comfort thing. It's like we have these like technologies and things that are being invented that are making people's life pretty complacent because they don't want to leave this comfort zone that they have. It's a lot easier to just stay the same than it is to kind of get out of that comfort zone.
100%. Now, for those that want to get some exclusive information from the real Rick Doyle, like, where can people go to work with you one-on-one, and what can they expect as far as in this one-on-one, if they're looking for some undivided attention?
Yeah, so you can always get me at TikTok at the real Rick Doyle, and just DM me on there. I'm good about answering questions here and there, but for best of what. Everybody's situation is different in finance. And this is one of the big things I stress. Like, me and you are a different age, right? We have different levels of income. We may have different debt. We may have different credit, right? So, like, yes, I post videos, but it's not a one size fits all. So I do offer coaching, and you'll see it. I have a Calendly link in the bio on there. So what I would strongly suggest is for people that are serious about their finance, what I bring to the table is you're going to get somebody who takes a holistic view at your finances and kind of gives you a play-by-play of like, here's what needs to happen. Like, let's really structure this out and let's work together to get you where you want to go. And we're going to focus on things like mindset. We're going to focus on things like, really building that solid plan to get you where you want to go, but doing it in a way that is easy for somebody to incorporate, right? But something that is something that they can feel confident in. So, yeah.
Improve. So in short, helping people improve their relationship with finance
100%.
in some degree, depending on what chapter they're at in their life.
No matter what it is, yeah. It could be, they want to buy a house. It could be, hey, my credit's garbage right now. Hey, I'm in debt. I need to pay off my credit cards. It's, hey, I need to save money for my college fund. Hey, here's a big one I get is, my 401k's here. What should I do with it? What should I invest in right now? Even things like that. Like I think you saw my my TikTok today. I had somebody message me because I gave them a stock tip. And their stock tip went up like 5%, and they made like $250 in a day on a stock. And it's things like that like, I take a lot of pride in what I'm doing, and I love being able to help people get where they want to go in any facet. But I also understand that not everybody's the same. They have different goals, risk tolerances. They're at different places financially, and so we really need to do like a one-on-one type setting, get a little bit more intimate to really dig into like what drives you, like how are we going to get you where you want to go, and where is it exactly that you want to go? And then you'll have somebody there that's going to, draw that plan out for you, give you something that you feel confident in, that you can stick to, and ultimately get you where you want to go.
Sensational. Well, if you're looking to be a voice of production in your finances, you know what to do. You need to go ahead and contact the real Rick Doyle. He's going to get you right. And again, these aren't the answers. These are perspectives that you need to consider with your next 5 moves. Shout out to Patrick David. So until next time, boom.